Okay.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute the minutes for the meeting of March 3rd, 2015.
Make that motion. Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
She probably will, but
She
she's
was
probably
printing something off really quick, but because we had
a copier malfunction, so we could jump to number 3 maybe?
Okay, we're doing the Office of Community. We're going to skip the financials until Heidi gets there. Yes,
Point up. Heidi's here. Heidi's here.
Oh, never mind.
Don't
Save your applause.
Did you drop that, Anita? Did something fall off on the floor there?
Oh, no, just on the table.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yep.
You're on.
You're on.
Okay. Financials today include revenue certifications for the Engineers Building Fund for anticipated revenue for the self-storage structure and for the Board of DD to agree with their 2015 Board approved budget. We have a supplemental appropriation for the ADP Board Computer Improvement Fund to allow for the purchase of the switches for the South Network Core upgrade. Cash transfers out of the general fund for the funding for the Engineers Office Salt Storage Structure project and a portion of 2015 funding for the county home. Contract increase for EnviroCom construction for change order number 1 for the Thompson Township Sewer Project for the Department of Water Resources in the amount of $35,199.20. Contracts for Stephen Ciceretto, AIA, for the creation of architectural plans for the Thompson Township Community Center Project for the Office of Community and Economic Development, totaling $29,500. Trevor request for the Building Department, the Dog Warden, and the Public Defender's Office. And a payment to Abraham Cantor for legal services for the Juvenile Court for the period January 9th through January 20th, 2015, in the amount of $4,625.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute resolution number 15-029, itemizing the financials for the meeting of March 10th, 2015.
Make that motion.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
And you're an eye on them.
You voted aye. I didn't. He didn't hear it.
Aye. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Now.
Is that mic on?
The mic is on. That's what.
Oh, yeah, you can. Oh, yeah, you can hear
Okay.
that.
Glenn, tell us if you hear anything back there, okay? Because it's under your chair.
I'm sitting there just
Vibrating.
He likes the vibration right there.
You should switch it around.
That's right.
Instead of every day, it's a different
It's a
place.
special chair.
It's like the door prize.
Yeah, right. You get a prize if the speaker's under your seat.
Okay. So what you got?
All right. Well, I know it's the first you've ever heard of this. We just had a meeting this morning. One of the duties that the county can perform on behalf of the townships is to create a CRA zone for them. CRA zone is where usually an industrial area of a township that wishes to encourage manufacturing to locate there. And one of the ways that they can do it is offering them an abatement on property tax. And the township can't do it on their own, but at their request, the county can step in and create it on their behalf. Then they have several committees that look at any potential applicants to locating there, usually based on jobs or the size of the building. So Parkman trustees have approached the commissioners and requested that their industrial zone area, the Parkman Industrial Park, be included into a CRA zone so that abatements could be offered should a business wish to locate there. So this petition, it's a lengthy it's a resolution, but it's part of a larger package that once the commissioners sign it, attachments will be made, and it'll be sent to Columbus. One of the other, your second motion is that the resolution will have to be published in the paper two days in a row for 2 weeks. 2 days, once a week for 2 weeks. So 2 Thursdays it'll be published. And then the package can be sent to the state. The state will create a number for it. It will be called whatever Parkland Township CRA zone number, like a 7-digit number. At that point, the county committee can entertain any business who wishes to locate there and determine what kind of abatement they get, or if they even get an abatement. It's not a given, solely arbitrary. You can decide who gets it and who doesn't. So, well, not you as a board, the committee. The committee will decide it. So.
We have a PA malfunction here. You don't have a pacemaker, do you? Because there's something that sounds like a heartbeat going on underneath Glenn's chair. I don't know. Doesn't it? I mean, there's click, 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 click. I mean, that's kind of, no, I digress, but I'm sorry. I don't
Sounds
know.
like fun.
You could try turning that volume down a little, Glenn, and see. This is still a work in progress here on this sound system.
Yes.
Anita,
It's good that Glenn is here to experience all that, because then he can help us to improve it.
right,
the
the
man
maintenance
in
guy's
the
in
hall.
charge. Our action in creating a CRA zone, as I understand it, is so that this event can happen, that someone can apply for tax abatement. It is not
This action
a
doesn't
tax
grant.
abatement, right?
This action doesn't grant an abatement. It makes it possible, should a business apply to the board, not to this board, to the committee,
Right.
They can decide on the abatement or none.
Right,
If you
depending
look
on
at-
the criteria
yeah.
and whether they comply, then the money issue is decided. This just allows
Yes.
for...
It allows for the process to happen.
Okay.
If you can look at, like, Troy Industrial Park, it has a total of 4 businesses in it. 2 received abatement and 2 didn't. So it's arbitrary. You don't have to have, they didn't do this and they didn't do that.
But if you don't have the CRA zone, nobody...
Oh, well, you can't do anything without a CRA zone.
That's all I want to make clear.
And it's like the CRA zones in Middlefield and Chardon, but they're municipalities, so they don't need the county to step in on their behalf. Only a township needs the county to help them with creating a zone.
Thank you.
Any questions? If not, why don't we just choose the other?
The Office of Community and Economic Development is requesting the Board approve and execute Resolution Number 15-030 implementing Sections 3735.65 through 3735.70 and Section 5709.85 of the Ohio Revised Code, establishing and describing the boundaries of community reinvestment area in the Township of Parkman, Geauga County, designating a housing officer to administer the program, and creating a Community Reinvestment Housing Council and a Tax Incentive Review Council. The Office of Community and Economic Development is requesting the Board grant permission to advertise Resolution Number 15-030 to create a Community Reinvestment Area, CRA, in the Township of Parkman, Geauga County, to be advertised on March 12, 2015, March 19, 2015, on the county website.
I'll make those motions.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye.
Great. We'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Maintenance guys. He was getting so comfortable back there in that seat that he wanted to come out.
He's working on the volume control.
Hey, what were you doing last week at this time?
Working on 470.
Oh, right. We had a nice little water main break outside, so
Trying to get running water established.
that's correct. That happened about 12 o'clock. City of Chardon realized that they were losing quite a bit of water and went out and started searching. Approximately from what I heard, about 2-3 in the morning, finally figured it out. Water was gushing up through the parking lot and everything. We have an 8-inch water line running from the front all the way back to the last fire hydrant. A 1-inch water line tapped off that feeds these 4 buildings over on this side. That Band-Aid, the connection had come undone. So after finding it, getting the proper equipment in, because we have 8-inch of stabilizer concrete in there, in this whole parking lot area. So busting through that, and then the asphalt and everything. So, and then finally getting down. It was probably about 10 o'clock when we finally got all the water back.
It's a long day.
And back on.
10 at night.
Yeah,
Correct.
Right.
10 at night, Tuesday night. And then we had a urinal overflow, so and then we were in cleaning that up. So by the time we got out of here, it was probably about 11 o'clock or so. So, but right now it's all back on. I'm going to kind of let it settle a little bit, get that gravel in there, and then dig it back up about 12 inches down, put what they call LSM. I've been working with the county engineers about this whole thing. Get that back on, 8 inches of LSM, which is like a concrete mixed with sand, and then we'll do the 3 to 4 inches of asphalt. Do a 3-inch sub-base asphalt, and then your finished layer of asphalt is about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And then we're going to come in. I'm talking to the asphalt guys right now, probably because of that, so much water heaved this whole area. We still have a lot of drainage up underneath that whole area, this whole area going into our basin.
But you didn't find any more evidence. You did a test for chlorine by the basin to make sure that there wasn't another water line leak farther down.
Correct. So we're going to do another test just to make sure, because we checked it yesterday and there's a lot of water coming out, but with that, there's a lot of water in the ground and everything right now. So,
well, thank you for that. And the only question I have is, I followed the lead of the county administrator, and I parked there today.
Oh.
What?
I'm not going to go out and find my car in a sinkhole, am I?
I hope not.
No,
It's part of the test.
Okay.
I put a weight test on there.
I pulled in and I was going to park back there. You parked up here. I just said, I'm going to go, and you're parked next to me.
That's our test.
Yeah.
Our cars are still visible. We know it's not.
I'm sure we'll go
It
course
was
that they're
somewhat
covered.
nice yesterday, so we pressure washed that.
Yeah.
And got a lot of that dirt.
Right, that was.
That way the dirt is not being tracked into the buildings, and then now we've got cleaning problems and everything else, so that really hyped it up. So
Much before yesterday, if you pressure wash it, you'd be making snow.
Well, that and an ice rink, so but I'm glad it's over with. It's, like I said, got that little bit to finish up. We'll let that settle and go from there. So I got some pictures if you want to look at them.
I stayed here and watched a lot of it.
So,
Got a little
Did
wet.
you say that you were going to resurface a lot of the other lots? Were you looking at that?
yeah,
Because
this,
of all the
this
cracks and
area,
heaving and
all
stuff?
the cracks and everything. So we're getting some price quotes on that and what to do. And do I need to take off the main base of the 3-inch asphalt, and we do that with the finished asphalt, 1.5 inches. So
In the course of what you did you notice whether or not there was a lot, because of the heaving and the movement of the ground and everything, is the rest of the line at jeopardy, or are we good down there?
not without getting down in there and digging it all up, but looking at it, we're going to have some settling going on down there. I think personally it's been going on for a little bit of time. It's not just something that happened within a couple days or a week. I think it's been an ongoing problem that just you never saw it. And I hope we have it all fixed right now. And this is one of the reasons why we're going to do the chlorine test.
The way it washed or eroded the pipe from the flow of water, that didn't happen overnight. I'm assuming that you'll be able to monitor the water meter readings for this facility, and I'd like to think they're going to go down after the leak, and then you might be able to, because the water shouldn't vary that much here. I mean, it's not like we're doing laundry.
And this was all before the meter. So
this was all before, so we didn't pay for it. Oh, heck with it.
No, let's
He's paying for it.
No.
We were paying for it.
We want to make sure Chardon's taken care of. I want to go on the record with that.
Yeah, so
Never mind.
we're watching that.
That was
So,
great.
and this is why we're going to keep doing the chlorine test, so that we still don't. Because that main line is on private property somewhat, so it's not like a road where it's feeding. So, but once again, this is a really great thing. The engineers helped us out. Maintenance came together. Water department came together. City of Chardon was down here helping us. All right, so that was 4 major different departments coming together and getting this worked out. So, which was very, very impressive.
Yeah,
that's once again thanks to the engineers, the water department, and all of them guys coming together. Everyone was very professional out there, and it came great.
If I can take a moment just to recognize Glenn, because I think a lot of people, obviously people who aren't affiliated with the county or working with the county, and even people working for the county and are just in their one area, don't realize the magnitude of what Glenn has to take care of. He's got those classic old buildings up on the square, 150 years old in some cases. He's got this facility down here that the county was able to buy in the 90s because they needed space, but it wasn't exactly built to the highest standards of
lowest bidder. Yeah,
lowest bidder, and it's very cost-effective facility, but it's very maintenance intensive. And then you have down by the sheriff's office, you have the largest concentration of county employees. So when you talk county offices, it's not like we're in one building. We're spread all over the place with a variety of different buildings, a variety of different technologies, plumbing challenges, HVAC challenges, roof challenges, pavement challenges. And Glenn and his department, I think, just do an outstanding job of trying to stay on top of that and going the extra mile all the time. And I really appreciate it.
And once, I have an outstanding group, so they put up with a lot. A lot of those guys are in here at 6 o'clock in the morning, trying to make sure everything's going and everything, and a lot of them are here on Saturday. So I really have an innate team with me, and they really try to, how many county employees are here, 1,000 or whatever it is, that they try to keep happy every day. So.
Once again, thank you and thank them for their efforts.
Okay, so what you're here for?
Yeah.
That was all the other stuff.
You got enough pats on the back for
get to the
rest
point
of the year.
Is he going to be able to get out the door with that swell?
If the head's that big, I don't know.
Once again, it's not me; it's my team. So they're the ones that do the actual work. So I'm here for the communications clerk, switchboard operator. I want to hire another part-time for getting that going up there. We have a whole lot of highly qualified personnel here. This person really stood out with the extra letters, extra phone calls. Just took that really extra step. Here's a letter. As I learn even more about the above position with Geauga County, I've become increasingly eager about this opportunity. Privileged to work for my home county and with the many team members who keep this part of Northeast Ohio such an excellent place to live would be a very fulfilling. It's just letters like that and the phone calls of making sure that everything was on there. Attention to detail that I call, and that's what really drew this person, Hannah, out on top. So I'm recommending that we go ahead and hire her for this.
The Maintenance Department is requesting the Board approve hiring Hannah Gordon to the position of General Communications Clerk Switchboard Operator, number 1912-1, to be effective March 30th, 2015, at a rate of $9.39 per hour. After the successful completion of a 1,000-hour probationary period, the rate will increase to $9.89 per hour.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Brenda.
So, Commissioner, Denise isn't here yet. Would it be possible for us to flip around with somebody else on the agenda?
Sure.
We can move number 6 down.
Yeah,
I
I
think
just
they're
switched
come up.
them and Mr. Matthews.
Tell you what, before we get into the, I'm going to suggest that before we do that, we maybe pass the the next two resolutions, get that out of the way.
8, 9.
Presentations might get get us into a conversation. So why don't we do 8 and 9, and then we'll come back at presentations.
Okay. The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board appoint Kim Laurie as alternate for Ralph Spitaleri to the NOACA Board of Directors until further notice.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
I believe, does anybody want to explain why we did this last week and then we're doing it again
Yeah,
this week?
well, I was going to, but
Okay, no, that's I'm going to say that last week, Mr. Spitaleri had named the county engineer as his alternate, but the county engineer had some health issues and is off work right now for a while. So this action doesn't supersede, that just follows the other action because his alternate can't go. So it's not like he's fickle or he's changing his mind left and right. There's a problem with the alternate.
yeah, and just for further note, that NOACA's bylaws don't allow us to have an alternate for the alternate, so we literally have to go through the process of naming who the alternate is going to be for a particular period, session, whatever the case is. So, and we got a board meeting coming up this Friday, and it's important we have a qualified person at that table. So, go ahead.
Diane Jones, my question is it not necessary to rescind the previous motion?
No.
He just supersedes it.
It's
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye. We did have a motion second. Right. Thank you.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve the scheduling of a County Budget Summit work session to be held on Wednesday, April 15th, 2015 at 8:30 a.m. in Building A's meeting room.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Clayton?
Executive session. So, with that,
We're back to I guess, right?
okay. Brenda, did you still have? Oh, are you still waiting for somebody?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Matt, Vic, why don't you come on up?
Ms. Laurie asked if we read it,
Oh, sure. Okay. Now announcing Mr. Vic Matthews. He's the coordinator of Family Life Intervention Program for the Juvenile Court. He's retired global customer service professionals for Lincoln Electric, 47 years of employment, and is listed as the inventor on patents in 8 countries for his company, the Lincoln Electric. During his time, Vic was the president and chairman of the board of directors for the American Welding Society, the codifying body for the welding profession. He's a firefighter, EMT for the Russell Fire Department, a former officer in the Geauga County Board of Mental Health Recovery Services, currently president and chairman of the board of the National Alliance on Mental Health, NAMI, in Geauga County. Welcome, Vic. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I thank the commissioners for this opportunity to do an update on the FLIP program. A little history. In 2012, we had at least 2 people die because they had not been able to get their assessments done and get into treatment. And there may have been 4, but I only know of 2. And so people were overdosing and dying. Today, in 2015, and it's starting in 2014, assessments are done within 2 weeks from the day they're in court, and the client is in a outpatient treatment program by week number 3. Now, in 2014, when I came on board for this program, we had no volunteers. We had no concrete program. And so I spent the first 3 months writing the syllabus for the training for our volunteers. And every volunteer has to take a 10-hour training class. And it's all taught by master's level clinicians. And so I lost essentially 3 months at the start of the year. Okay. Now the mission is to get the people through the court process, which can be very seemingly convoluted in their eyes, and absolutely it's scary. They're overwhelmed. They come into court. They just had their family separated by Job and Family Services, and so they're scared out of their minds, and their perception is the whole world is out to get them. And of course, they have a problem. They have a substance abuse problem. And that's one of those ever-growing problems. Once you look, you're hooked, is what I always say when it comes to that. Now, the state of Ohio preference in the Ohio Revised Code is they want the reunification of the family. And the only time they will not do that is if the parents aren't capable of doing their job as parents. So, when they come into the program, I greet them with all the paperwork that goes along with the program. And I explain that, okay, this is a voluntary thing and you volunteered. Once that happens, they are then under a court order to participate in the program with all of its requirements. And so by doing this, we lessen the time that the child is removed from their care and assist the families in maintaining the custody of their children. And they must work towards a sober lifestyle. There's some criteria that must be met. Eligibility, they must be adjudicated for their underlying issues for substance abuse. The parent is a resident of Geauga County, and the client may be currently involved with Job and Family Services, but not necessarily. They must be seeking to regain or retain the custody of their children. That's a big one. They've got to want it. There's some ineligibility criteria. If they have a history of serious violent crimes, sexual abuse, or if they've severely got mental health issues that are beyond our scope of practice, and if they have any charges that will lead to more than a 30-day jail sentence. Okay, they're given an action plan, and we assist them with that action plan. Yes. We present to them their goals. They get an orientation right up front. The schedule and assessments are made, and they must be working to achieve their recovery program, and they must work to achieve stabilization. They've also got to show that they've given themselves a clean environment. They've got to get out of the old environment that brought them to this problem. So they need a new drug-free environment. They have to follow the recommendations that are given to them. And we help them with community resources, let them know of all the contract providers in Geauga County that can help them. And they must appear in court, and they have expectations that have to be met. They've got to comply with all the orders. They've got to do their job. They also must work very closely with the Job and Family Services caseworker and with the CASA person. And they've got to support the entire program. Even though they may not like it, they've got to have buy-in on it. They've got to have some skin in the game, as we call it. Now, for those people that have a job, we try to facilitate their employment by having court at a different time other than the normal docket time. And that is an option. That's not a for sure thing. Each case is rated on its own merit. Okay. There's some termination and discharge things. And the state, Ohio Revised Code, gives us 1 year. They can have a 6-month extension and ask for a second 6-month extension for a max of 2 years. And if they do not succeed in correcting their personal problems that cause the separation of the family, the court will make a permanent placement for the children. So that the clock is ticking and we're watching. And of course, the best solution is to have them graduate or have a commencement that they've done everything they're supposed to do, and JFS's recommendation is to go ahead and put the kids back with the family. And that is indeed a celebration, but it's one with caution, because while we want recovery is not an absolute. It's a work in process. It's not something that can be done in 3 days, 3 months, or 3 years. It takes a lifetime. Now, there are instances where a person will be off the program through no action of their own. They've moved out of the county, they have military responsibilities, they've become terminally ill, and all the participants' needs are beyond our scope. And that has not happened to date so far. And even if they are terminated from the FLIP program, they're still obligated by court order to work with Job and Family Services and cooperate fully with CASA in the treatment plan. Now, we try to encourage them, empowerment might be a good word here, to do the right things and give them the attaboy when they are doing the right things, or attagirl, because it's men and women together that have this problem. There are sanctions. They can be reprimanded. We can increase the drug testing or court appearances. We can terminate them from the program, or we can put them in jail for contempt of court. And that might be a 30-day thing. None of those have happened so far. We have one person terminated from the program, even after a discussion with her attorney about the consequence of jail. The attorney didn't like that. This individual was caught in a meth lab 2 weeks after, actually 3 days after I spoke with the attorney and had her on the program. So she was, of course, terminated. And next, please. We will do whatever monitoring is necessary for the situation. And so far, I've not had to use any ankle monitoring or make any unannounced home visits. But we do conduct random drug screens. They never know when they will be tested. And so that is something that we watch very closely. The testing, we will do whatever level of testing is necessary, dictated by the situation, which includes hair tests, mouth swabs, blood and urine tests, or breath tests, breathalyzer, to make sure that we have a good record of their sobriety. They must also disclose all the medications or chemicals that they're taking, whether they're prescription or over-the-counter, okay, so that there's adequate. And they do sign medical releases to provide us that information. And they also sign those releases for all the treatment providers that they're working with. There's a list of the services that we hook them up with. They need to work their program, whether it's AA or some job training or family counseling. Some people have anger issues, so they have to take anger management classes, and those are the groups that do all of that. We do try to help them. We get them hooked up with counselors, and if they need educational training, we hook them up with people that do that kind of thing. When it comes to testing, as long as they test negative, the FLIP program pays for the drug test. But if they test positive, they're held accountable and they will pay for that test. And they will get the bill and be expected to pay. So we hold them accountable for what's going on. Next, please. They sign an agreement similar to a contract with the court. If they have an attorney, the attorney also signs it, and then I witness it. And I'm not going to read it. Everybody has a copy of it. But they have to comply with all the program and treatments under court order. Next. They also sign a covenant with the volunteer that's assigned to them. And again, this is a specially trained volunteer who help them from the standpoint that they'll be like the wind beneath their wings. The FLIP volunteers are trained listeners, and usually if a person has an addiction problem, there's certain triggers in daily lives that force them or cause them to go back out and abuse. And instead of doing that, they call and talk with their FLIP volunteer. So we are taking those triggers out of their lives. And we've been very effective at doing that. I must say that some of the criteria used, I borrowed from the Stephen Ministry Program, where I'm a leader in that ministry program with our church, and we're trained listeners. And that training was a 55-hour training. And so I incorporate some of those techniques because they work. So I'm using proven best practices. And so they signed this covenant with the volunteer. And indeed, they come to really trust the volunteer because the volunteer is non-judgmental in light of what has happened. So they're there on an even basis, eyeball to eyeball, with the client. And as such, they gain the confidence and trust of the volunteer. Next, please. Just so everybody understands kind of the relationship of the players here. JFS has a tough job. They are more or less like a referee in the relationship between the parents who have the problem and the children. JFS then takes the children out of the home because that's in the best interest of the children. They're at risk as long as mom and dad are abusing. It could be heroin, it could be alcohol. There's a guardian ad litem assigned. It could be an attorney, but most often our practice is to use CASA. CASA will advocate for the children. What is the best thing going on for the kids? While they're in foster care, CASA checks on those kids. Make sure that they're in school, that they're performing well. If they need counseling, they arrange for that and everything. FLIP advocates for the compliant parent. And the reason I say compliant, if they're not compliant, they won't be in the program. So they have to be compliant. And due to the situation, the clients have a perception that JFS is an adversary because they took the kids away. Okay, it's just the nature of the thing. JFS has a real tough job, and they do the job well. And I don't know. It's a tough job, and I have a lot of respect for what they do. Next, please. Some things to consider when you look at the FLIP program. All the clients' involvement is voluntary. If they accept it, then they are assigned, and it becomes a court order. But they don't have to accept it. It's not forced on them. We can't force anybody to get into FLIP. I also want to point out the volunteers are unpaid. And in 2014, in the 9 months that we were active, we had over 202.4 hours of volunteer time. Individuals that do not have a volunteer assigned can also be helped. And that is just making an appointment for them to get the assessment. And these are low-risk people. They've made a mistake, and they know that. They're really not addicted as such. Our records, the FLIP records, are based on the time cases are heard in court, not the date of inception. And that's an important criteria because for me, the clock starts ticking the time I have them in court. We receive cases that come from JFS, but also cases that come from outside of JFS. And we can receive requests or recommendations for participation from anywhere outside the court. I passed out 2 pamphlets. I have those on display in the lobby of the courtroom. I had 2 clients, saw that, picked it up, and called me. I want to participate in the program. So the clients came on their own volition to this. Nobody recommended it to them. I cannot service any clients being charged with serious felony issues, such as the one person who failed the program because she had felony charges pending. Okay, next, please. Okay, I would call your attention to the numbering in the second column. First one is 13 JF. There's a 14 JF. There's 11 CU. JF is Job and Family Services. The CU is outside or a private case that was brought. The first number is the year. Now you notice one person's from 2011. We have some from 2013. We only had 2 from 2014. Well, we had 9 participants that had volunteer assignments. Now, these assignments are women with women and men with men for obvious reasons. So we serviced 5 cases from JFS involving 7 people. We had 2 cases outside of JFS. Next, please. Now, these are cases where there was no volunteer assignment made. 8 participants without a volunteer. And success is having the clients work their treatment program. That's very important. And recovery is a lifetime process. As I said earlier, it's not something where you take a pill, you get a shot, and you're all better. When you're dealing with addictions, it's a lifetime issue. It's not something that happens overnight. They didn't get this way overnight, and their cure is not going to happen overnight. And in AA circles, you'll hear them say that once you become a pickle, you can't go back to being a cucumber. Okay, so your body's metabolism has changed, and it's permanent. You can't reverse it. And that's been medically proven. So recovery is a lifetime process. Last slide. On behalf of those clients in the high-risk group, I want to thank the Board of Commissioners for allowing this program to exist. And it's a very sincere thank you on their behalf. And I think I'm very proud to say, together, we made a difference. And I just want to repeat something that was given to me many years ago. I was blessed to have an adult son who's bipolar. So I've been in the mental health arena for over 28 years, and all my knowledge is based on real-life experiences. And I'll never forget when I was in the throes of darkness at the onset of his illness. I was scared out of my wits, didn't know which way to turn. And I had a gentleman, small guy in stature, he only came up to my shoulder, Eugene Bridno. And Eugene said to me, Vic, no matter what you do in anything pertaining to your programs, just make a difference. And that lives with me every day. And when I go into court every day, that's my goal, to make a difference. And I thank you for the time.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Vic. Do you mind if I ask you some questions?
Sure, go ahead.
And by the way, full disclosure, I know Vic pretty well. He goes to my church. We have been in a number of Bible studies together. And Vic is a really good-hearted guy who wants the best for folks that are in difficult situations. I say that to preface some of my questions, which may be a little challenging. Because I represent the taxpayers of this county, and I think the taxpayers of this county expect us to ensure that we're doing the responsible thing with our tax dollars. And so do me a favor, if you will, Dave, put the slide back up there. Slide back up there. Go to the second to the last one. And so the first question I have is, we got a lot of great counties, a lot of great organizations in this county. There are about 15 of them belong to an organization called the Family First Council, all of whom are responsible for taking care of things similar to this. And so the first question I have for you, Vic, is how does this program do something different than what the other 15 organizations have the potential to do in this county? We're providing general fund dollars to fund this program versus levy dollars, which go to the Mental Health Board and Ravenwood and some of the other organizations that deal with some of these difficult situations. So we're providing extra funding, not approved by the voters, but approved by the court. And so how is it that we can justify yet another program to deal with this situation?
Well, the fact that we had people dying before FLIP, I can't put a dollar value on somebody's life.
So you're telling me that the FLIP program is going to stop people from overdosing?
I think what the FLIP is doing is closing the cracks that exist in all the other programming.
Okay.
It's still warming up. Yeah.
There was a slide, and here's a concern that I have. There was a slide that was the second to the last, and one of the questions, and you and I talked about this the other day, determining what success is. Success, according to your slide, was involvement in the process.
Clients working their treatment program.
Okay, working the treatment program. The treatment program is open-ended. In other words, this may go on, and you made the statement, it's a lifelong thing.
Right.
And so therefore the taxpayers, through the court, without approval of the taxpayers, the citizens of this county, are giving an open-ended check to support people in this program who may or may never get off of the program. Mm-hmm. And so how would you respond to that?
Well, I would say that my experience was we've had a number of people complete the program in the 9-month period. Okay, and it's open. Their recovery is open-ended, but our involvement is not open-ended. The court is limited by the Ohio Revised Code to 2 years. 1 year, then 2 6-month extensions. And if they don't succeed, then a permanent placement is done, and that's it. There might be some situations where reunification might not be possible. Okay, in which case the court will make that permanent assignment to a foster arrangement. So it's not open-ended in the sense that it can go on for years and years and years. Our involvement is limited to their time in court.
So 2 years, we're making a 2-year commitment to people. Is that what I hear you saying?
Well, I'm expecting people to succeed in a lot less than that.
And succeed is
they have a treatment program in place, and they've convinced us that they know how to work it. They're working their program. So we've had people complete the program in 6 months.
But being in a program doesn't necessarily mean that they've succeeded at anything. Just being in a program. You can go to the Mental Health Board or Ravenwood or some other organization and be in a program. You don't need to have volunteers to ensure you're in a program.
Well, no. We're dealing with their sobriety. Mm-hmm. Okay. Can they fall off the wagon 4 years down the road? Absolutely. We've got cases that go back to 2011. Here's some from 2012. They're on the merry-go-round. And I will say this, that it's been my experience that mental illness and substance abuse have an overlapping footprint. Mm-hmm. If you've got one, you most likely got the other, which is why our assessments are dual diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And so it's a lifetime problem. And we're kidding ourselves if we don't recognize that. And I really believe that we will succeed in getting these people. I've never had an extension asked for it on any flip participant.
And why wouldn't we get recognized? I mean, there's a lot. I've got 1,000 questions. I'm not going to take up everybody's time with all the questions that I have. But why wouldn't we identify who these individuals are and flip them into another program within the county that is already established to deal with people who have mental health issues, that have narcotics issues, because I've been checking with some of our drug courts and some others across the state, and the success rate with hard drugs, I'm talking heroin, not alcohol or marijuana or simpler drugs, but the hard drugs, the success rate is so low that I fear putting them into a program which says we're going to keep them 2 years, possibly longer, and by the way, they can fall off the wagon and they get back into the program and the clock starts again. And so I fear establishing a system that obligates our taxpayers to some commitment without ever getting out of it. It looks like we're locking the taxpayers into having to pay for something when we have organizations, mental health organizations, established to do just that.
That is part of their treatment program, is that referral process. Mm. We hook them up with those agencies right up front.
And why not just get them out of the program then?
Well, they do graduate at that point. Once they're in those other programs and they're doing all the things that they're supposed to do, then they become the charge of that program, and I'm out of it.
Okay. Well, what is the liability? I mean, most of the folks, and I had some experience, I grew up in the 60s, with people who were, had something to do with drugs. Not me.
Waited until later.
Never had anything to do with drugs other than Lipitor or something like that. 2 baby aspirin a day. But folks that I have known who have had hard drug problems oftentimes had other legal issues. Right. And they're a liability risk for somebody. And so you've got volunteers who have training to listen, but may not have training to deal with a hard situation in which you walk into somebody's home or you're dealt with somebody who is emotionally unstable because they're taking hard narcotics and their whole mind changes. Their whole, the complexity of what they're all about changes. And you can't necessarily predict the volatility of those individuals. I fear for the volunteers that they've been put into a risk situation because of the liability.
Well, first of all, someone in that classification would not be part of the program.
And how do you know that?
I mean, how would you know what the volatility of somebody who's taken heroin is? Today they're great. Tomorrow they're on heroin, and they want their next fix. And all they're looking for is money or some resource to get the next fix. And so,
when the arrest is first made, there is a pretty thorough overview created by the police department.
Okay.
So much of that information known going forward, right up front. And so we will make determinations based on that information. And we're only going to accept people in the program that we have a confidence level in, that we are reasonably sure after due diligence that these people have a chance to succeed.
And are you using the mental health organizations to help you to do that assessment?
Yes, all assessments are done by, right now I have a contract with Lake Geauga, and the assessments are done by those counselors. And I talk with them one-on-one to glean the information necessary to see how we're going to proceed if the person is a viable candidate.
I don't have any more questions.
I have a couple that are just on. This goes back to page 3 because that's the page that I wrote it on. The eligibility criteria and ineligibility criteria. My question becomes: are all of the cases that are eligible for this treatment, are they given the option to participate in it, or is there some? I don't want to use the word cherry picking, but is there some kind of evaluation? Let's say you have 50 cases and you don't have 50 slots. Is there a lottery to get into it, or is it it's a predetermined that these are the most likely to succeed, and so they get into this program? What's the if they meet all the eligibility criteria and ask to participate in it, then we will figure a way out, a way to handle it. As it turned out, I didn't have enough volunteers, and I myself became a volunteer. Okay, and and incidentally, I'm not on the clock when I'm doing my volunteer hours. I do that just because all the other volunteers, I want to be the same as them. And all the contacts that are made, we do a quality review quarterly with all the volunteers and go over each of their caseloads in an anonymous way. We refer to them as clients, Adam or Eve. And so none of the clients know who the other ones have. And so, yes, it's a challenge, and it's a little bit of a juggling act because it's a new program. You can't do it if you don't have the people. I just wondered what the criteria was for selection, because I believe there's more cases in the county, numerous more cases. I don't have a number than the amount that are in the FLIP program, and I fully understand that if you don't have the volunteers, you can't make chicken salad without chicken. So you can't solve this without people to work on those cases. And my question was, how do they arrive at who gets in and who doesn't get in?
Yeah.
And you may not be. That's my question. I don't know if you got an answer for it or not.
Well, the answer is to grow the program and get more volunteers on board. And I've already, there's been some talk about expanding our scope to include the cases of domestic violence, because that represents a significant caseload in the court. And to do that, that would be an additional 10 hours of training for the volunteers, plus any new volunteers would now be looking at 20 hours of training. And again, it has to be done by master's level clinicians. And I've already written the syllabus for that. And I've got a master's level clinician from Women's Safe who will help administer that. But, we had to finish the year, and the program is still new, and we're still making refinements and improvements as we're going along.
Well, thank you. I have a couple other, these, bear with me because I'm also a child of the 60s. On page 5, where it says program termination and discharge, during some part of your explanation of that upper paragraph or upper block, I wrote over here, no one has been discharged according to the program termination and discharge. Did you say that? I mean, without going back and looking at the tape, I don't know why I wrote that.
No one has been. Only one person's been dropped from the program. Okay. We've had people graduate.
Yeah, no, I meant this was a discharge for not non-compliance.
This was the client that I had the discussion with the attorney about consequences, which also included jail for non-compliance, and the attorney didn't like that. And 2 days later, this client was busted in a met lab.
So there has been someone that's been discharged
for non-compliance.
Yeah, inappropriate, whatever.
Yeah.
And then in the second block down there under sanctions, I wrote the word none with a question mark. And I don't remember which one of those bullet points that referred to.
We've not had to sanction any of the participants thus far.
And then my last set of questions is back near where Skip's questions were at the back of the document, which I don't understand the following. This could be on page 10. There's also a chart on 11. Court records show the following cases with volunteers assigned. This is page 10.
Right.
Date of assignment in court, and then there's a chronological calendar dates in the left corner.
Right.
Then you explained that second column, that's the one with the case, one up from the bottom that has an 11 by it, which would mean the offense was in 2011?
That was the inception of the case.
So this program didn't exist before 14.
That's correct.
So these cases that have been pending, they all started on this date in the left-hand column. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get clear. It didn't start in 11 or 12 because on the other page there's some 12s, and I'm like, okay, that's.
This is when I got them in court.
Okay, that's I just needed that
that's
clear in my own mind.
That's a very good question. I didn't make that clear enough.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one final thing before you go. I just want to make the comment for everybody. I am not a mental health expert, and I don't mean to be second guessing the judge or the court or any other organization. But because we do manage the budget, and this program costs $150,000, it's budgeted this year for $152,000, a volunteer-based program. That and there's an interest in expanding that program. Therefore, the cost. I'm concerned, and so there's questions to be asked, and I am reaching out to various organizations within the county to try and understand all I can understand about this program, because we're responsible for managing the budget in a responsible way and making sure that we're doing our job by the taxpayers of the county. So, again, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm an adult with a lot of years of experience with folks who are with narcotics and growing, raising 5 kids and now 10 grandkids.
I would like to just clarify, in 2014 there was only $117,000, not $150,000.
Actually, I think last year we had $43,000. It was actually year to date. I mean actual.
Yeah.
But this year is budgeted $152,000. And so
that was the number I got.
We can go over the numbers.
That's fine.
Problem. But that's the number that I've got for salaries and so forth.
Well, I would also mention, as I gave David some numbers to share with the commissioners, the Economic Office of the President of the United States says that the cost-to-benefit ratio of this kind of thing is 7-to-1. Okay, which, I'm not an economist. I don't know how they generate those numbers, but if you add that to what was spent, we're looking at close to $500,000 savings to the citizens of Geauga County, which is a real good return on investment that business people look at.
if true, this is coming from an administration that says you can keep your doctor too. So I'm not real sure that I have a high degree of trust
I hear
for
you.
some of the what's coming out of the federal government today. But
One thing I'd like to add, in light of what Skip had said, is that I'm involved with the Opiate Task Force. I'm involved with the Chardon Community Action Team, and have been for quite a while. I attend the Opiate Task Force. I don't have the understanding, but I have the empathy for people with addiction and mental illness problems. And I don't want that to be misconstrued by someone who thinks I'm Simon Legree or somebody that's just, cut them off at the knees or throw them out on the street. No, I have a very deep passion for these folks. And so when my questions or I ask or I'm critical of something, probably the bulk of that falls on my shoulders, that I haven't done enough research or don't have enough answers, haven't asked enough questions to get the right answers to the right questions. But in no way, shape, or form do I want somebody to think that I'm a non-believer in trying to salvage people's lives who've fallen off the rails. I'm just stating that for the record.
Sure. Yeah, there's nobody in this room, Vic is a fantastic individual with a fantastic heart. Judge Grindell and the courts want to do the right thing by the kids and the adults that are coming through. Well, actually, adults don't come through the court, but they're impacted by the fact that their kids got taken away. That's how they got into the situation. So, everybody wants the right thing. The question gets to be how best to do that. And is the best way to do that through the court, or is the best way to do that through health professionals in the Mental Health Board and the Ravenwood and all these other organizations? I don't know the answer to that question. It's our obligation to ask hard questions, and I apologize to you, Vic. It's our obligation to ask hard questions to make sure we get to the right answer. And so with that said, I've asked Craig Swenson from Jobs and Family Services, whose job it is to take care of some of these situations, to come up and make some comments on it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Commissioners. May it please the court.
Yeah, it's not a court here.
I know.
This is just a discussion.
Well, first, and I agree with a lot of the sentiments that have been expressed up here, and also the efforts that Vic has and the court has undertaken to address this very important issue, of drug and alcohol abuse in the county. And it's many years ago, we didn't think that these issues would be really coming to small, little, Geauga County, but obviously, as transient people come out to our county, they are impacting us. And I also appreciate the comments that you made regarding JFS. And, a couple things that I just want to clarify is, with respect to, it's not Job and Family Services. We are not tearing these kids away. We make recommendations to the court, but it's the court that gives us custody. So it's not. And one thing that I'm really trying to work on and change is that we don't want, my social workers don't want to be the adversary in court, because we're working side by side along with the parents as well to try to get them services, get them linked with services, make referrals, and do that. So really my thing with the FLIP program is I want to figure out if there's a way, because I feel like a lot of the things that are presented up here are a lot of the things that we're doing at JFS too. Linking people to services, partnering, working with them, trying to keep them sober, drug testing, things of that nature. So I just want to make sure, and I think the commissioners would understand, is we don't want to duplicate, services. So if anything, if you have your Herculean efforts and we have our Herculean efforts, how can we align these things so we can make this thing hum? And how can we work together to best service the families? And because many times, a lot of these parents, they have a CASA worker, they have a FLIP they have you, they have a FLIP volunteer, they have a JFS caseworker, they have a mental health worker, sometimes a drug and alcohol worker. And then oftentimes with the children, they have their own counselors. They have school teachers out there working with. There's so many people involved in these cases, in these lives. So really, I think the effort is there, and I think the want to do better and serve these peoples there. I just think that we need to really try to figure out how this picture jives with JFS, and because I really don't want my caseworkers, I disagree with the fact that they view us as the adversary, because these caseworkers are going into these people's homes, talking to their kids, and their goal is reunification as well for the family. So, and again, we make recommendations to try to protect children and keep them safe, and sometimes that can be offensive to families that don't want to believe that they have a problem, but ultimately, it's our goal too. So I think that viewpoint that JFS is the adversary really needs to change, because again, we want that to happen too, because taking children away and keeping children away costs, the county taxpayers some more dollars and stuff too. We want families raising their children, and so that's really what I'd like to figure out, is how we can make this sensible and working together. This county is known to collaborate, and that's really what JFS would be looking to do.
Yeah, and I think that, to underline what Craig just said, one of the strengths of this county, and I've seen it as the new commissioner in experiences with other counties, is that we do a phenomenal job of collaborating.
Yep.
And so, unlike, unfortunately, some of the other counties that I've seen out there, there's a lot of divisiveness and uncooperation between the departments. And so our reason is not to beat you up, Vic. We love you. We think that you're a great guy, and you're doing, you're working your heart out here with a difficult situation. It's heart-wrenching when you see these people in the situation that they're in. But there's always areas for improvement. Sure. And so by asking hard questions, by getting this out on the table, letting the public know what's going on, we can come to the right decision. And we've got a lot of great organizations in this county, and JFS is one of those. We have a new director now who's got his legs under him, running hard, trying to improve things. I think we have a real opportunity here to improve all the programs, including maybe the FLIP program. And so we just need to keep the dialogue up, I think,
because there are as much as there are families that are JFS families that have worked in the FLIP program. We have lots of other ones that have drug and alcohol issues that weren't part of the FLIP program. But if we can make this, somehow a collaborative effort and make sure that we have all things in line, I think that's the best way to go about this. Because I don't like the concept of making this is your job, this is your job, this is your job, when we can really all try to figure out a way to work together, just because it makes things more efficient, more cost effective.
I totally agree. It has to be a team effort. All the agencies have to push the cart in the same direction in order to be effective. And when I relate the perception, that's not my perception of the relationship. That's the client's perception.
Yeah.
And so we need to look at some ways of changing that perception that the clients have. Keep in mind, when they are in court for the very first time, they have the biggest chip on their shoulder that you can realize, because their attitude is prosecutors out to get them, the JFS is out to get them, the CASA workers squealing on them, right. Everybody's out to get them, and that's their genuine gut feel. Mm-hmm. And so when we advocate for them, they've gained a trust. Now we need to figure out a way that JFS can glean that level of trust.
Yeah.
And
we're working on it.
I'll work with you on it. You and I need to maybe have a couple coffees sometime.
Well, we are. On Thursday.
And keep in mind, somebody's got to pay the bill, so let's try.
Well, I buy my own coffee.
No, that's okay. I'll buy your coffee. Well, I appreciate it, Nick. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. 8, right? Or 6.
Back to 6, yes.
Okay, back to 6. Brenda, are you ready? Yeah. Vic warmed up the hot seat for you.
Yeah,
I have 2 chairs up here. How many people we have?
That's all right. I'm just going to move to
the
the front row
there.
Yeah, Craig will just be back there, and he'll be in Margot. So we brought up entourage with us. So.
The entourage.
Absolutely. Good morning. I've got a handout for you as well in relationship to businesses.
How many you got? We got one first.
All 4 of you. Yep.
Oops, sorry.
Are these the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you this morning for giving us this time to touch base with you. My name is Denise Tomazic, and this is Brenda Fogley. And my role in the county is working with businesses. So as you see at the top of the handout there, Ohio Means Jobs in the Business Resource Network. This is part of the partnership that I work with. Margot Rita, her team, and Craig Swenson, and Brenda Vogley and Craig Cernak from the Business Resource Network. So both of these agencies are very much committed to serving businesses, and it is really a seamless process for me when I work with businesses. So the Business Resource Network, Brenda probably has some background on that, but it actually started in the county, this county last January of 2014. So what you'll see is kind of a yearly recap. We did a recap in July as well. So I wanted to touch base first basically on the process so that you understand a little bit about that. The process is, and this is a free service for business, but there is an outreach to business. So I am essentially by many names, but one of them is the account executive. So I actually do the outreach to businesses. I make phone calls to them. I schedule an interview to meet with them, and I email them some preliminary paperwork, which would be a company background form, and also an interview that we would be conducting. The interview itself I view as an interactive conversation, and it really involves partnership throughout the county. So partners within this network do go out with me many times on the interview. I've had Steve Yaney from Planning and Zoning in Chardon that has attended a couple of the meetings here in Chardon. Anita Stalker and her group from Economic Development have gone out. And Leslie Gambosi, who is the Economic Development Director from Middlefield Village, has gone out a number of times with me in the Middlefield area as far as manufacturing is concerned. So we meet with the businesses, have a conversation. Essentially, the thought process is, what challenges are you experiencing? What resources would you like to be connected to? What might be helpful to your business? So meet with them, come back, and make up a challenges and opportunities form that's sent off to the partners, and a formal proposal comes back to the business. And it's just basically a document that says, based upon these needs that we discussed, boom, 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 these are resources that are available to you. So it's very helpful to the business. You don't have the partners contacting them directly, but they do have those resources when they need them. So that's kind of the process. The business climate, just want to give you an idea of what I'm seeing out and about there, with the businesses. Overall, it's very much a positive business climate in Geauga County. You've got your expansions, you've got strengthening of regional markets, people pursuing training more aggressively. Obviously, we'll touch base on some specific areas, but it's a controlled and focused growth strategy. So I think that kind of describes Geauga. It's a great entrepreneurial spirit in this county. Even the big companies will tell me about how they started in their garage. And I think that there's a lot of pride associated with that. But there is a very focused growth strategy and very much controlled, and I think that's served them well throughout the tough economy. So how can I support saying that the business climate is positive? Well, there's some stats down below there that come from our Business Resource Network area stats. And the business dynamics, 67% of the businesses that I interviewed, and we'll talk about numbers later, but it's been about 70 businesses, are reporting increasing sales. 58% are increasing their market share. Primary markets, 70% are regional and national markets. 16% have local markets and 14% international. The products, and I think this is important, 88% of the businesses said that they've introduced new products in the past 5 years. And within the next 2 years, 82% said we're going to introduce some other new products. So they're continuing to grow, they're finding their niche, and they're feeling solid in what they're doing. The investment forecast, 62% are planning future expansion in facility and possibly workforce. So I think that's important, and that's communication that goes back directly to Anita Stalker. the workforce evaluation, which is pretty critical, and I'll expand a little bit more later about that, but the availability of workers in this county. And surprisingly, I'm seeing a lot more confidence in this area. There's a survey that 1 out of 7, 1's the worst, 7's the best. What I was seeing mid-year was employers were rating it 4 out of 7. Now they've come up to an average of 5.5 out of 7. So they are beginning to find workers, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later about why. Quality and stability, it's pretty much unanimous that once they get people, they really feel that they're top-notch people. So they're 6 out of 7 is their rating in relationship to that. Workforce training, and I can't stress this enough. 75% of the companies are currently providing training. 67% are increasing their budget for training. And this is pretty critical. Employers are coming back and saying, we're willing to partner, we're willing to put some money out for training. And they are looking for, truthfully, training for their existing workforce. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but that's where they want to spend their money. If you flip over to the back, the business focus, what businesses, types of businesses have I met with, and how does the county play out? The county itself, we're not really dependent upon one particular sector for employment and services. We're not a county that has an 80% manufacturing. 20% of Geauga County is manufacturing. 13% retail. Healthcare is 12%. Government, 11%. And my visits have gone the whole gamut. Manufacturing, healthcare, small business, retail, in all those areas. And like I said, it's been 70 businesses that I've met with since January 2014 through February 2015. Important to you is what are businesses saying in the county? So this is pretty much general terms because there is a confidentiality agreement with the Business Resource Network so that there aren't specific company names. Healthcare cost and compliance, still on their mind. Businesses are moving ahead despite the uncertainty of healthcare. But I think what's kind of unique in this county is there is a concern that more or less for their employees rather than the first concern of their bottom line. They know that it's going to affect the bottom line, but they're really concerned about how can I continue to take care of my people. Workforce, there is a shortage of skilled labor. It is changing a bit, but more importantly, the county is looking at how do we develop the talent pipeline. So those are many things that I work with the businesses on. There's a growing emphasis on white-collar professionals. So if you're looking at engineering and some other areas, how do they attract these individuals to the county and retain them in the county? So 75% of the businesses rated general availability of workforce, and we talked about how that had increased. What I see happening is that companies cannot find, we've talked about this with them for the past year and a half, 2 years, it's difficult for them to find some of the skilled labor that they need. So the conversation now is how can I increase the proficiency of my current workforce, build that up, and make room for more entry-level people. So it's shifted. So in essence, they know that they're not going to find the CNC operator outside their door when they advertise for CNC. But they can take somebody within their own organization, have them trained, and move them up and make room for entry level. So when we're talking about making room for entry level, it can be somebody just out of college, or it can be somebody that comes from the group of Jobs and Family Services, the people that are in transition, that are going into alternate careers. So it could be employment for that adult workforce as well. Also, and I think what's happening in the workforce arena is, I've worked quite diligently with businesses in relationship to cross-county recruiting. Over 50% of the employees, or not employees, but 50% of the people that live in the county go out of the county to work. And so, that leaves a workforce that we pull from other counties. So if you go to Middlefield, you're pulling probably about 70% of your workforce from Trumbull County. So it's working with employers on how can you maximize cross-county recruiting. So jobs and family services from that end, posting job orders, helping them. But when they do that, I also work with them as to who's the contacts in the adjacent counties. Who else do you draw from? So that information goes out to them as well. And they can also let them know that there is an opening in their area. So I think the stronger that they get in that, and I'm seeing that happening, that is why they're ending up finding more people. In training, we talked about how people can't find the exact fit that they need to find. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ohio Incumbent Worker Training Grant. That grant has been around 2 or 3 rounds already from the Ohio Development Services Agency, and it's directed towards training for the existing workforce. Right now, there's not a lot of training out there for your existing workforce. So, I've worked with the companies in the past since I've been working with businesses for 5 years in the county. But, about 17, 18 businesses at least in getting them set. And there's been many more within the county that have taken advantage of that. So, kind of working them through that process. So, I think that's something we need to continue to look at. Something interesting that just came up in probably the past week is Geauga County. The Greater Cleveland Partnership is actually working with somebody from the private sector. It's a bank who has given them a $50,000 grant to be utilized for workers for incumbent worker training. So this is kind of the first stab at a private type of partnership. So I think Brenda is going to that meeting to find out a little bit more about that. I talked to the Cleveland Partnership person yesterday and said, how did this come about? And so I think people are looking at what ways can we utilize that funding, how can we pull public and private partners together. Infrastructure, and I know the county's in the process, as well as the Growth Partnership and some other areas of doing a survey. What I'm seeing is that some of the infrastructure issues are diminishing. And a lot of that, I think, is due to the fact that there has been some action. The Growth Partnership is a partner with us in this area. So if there's been internet issues that come through from employers, I know they've worked on some different things. It's still challenging in the county, though, if a business wants to expand, to find places that they can find building size. They will take a look and they'll say, I'm looking for, maybe a $60,000 square foot building. Where can I find? And Anita is wonderful. She pounds the pavement on that, and there are a number of other people looking. But sometimes that's still a challenge when a business wants to expand. Small business support, pretty critical. You've got a lot of small business within the county. And we're not talking about startups. We're not talking about the person that is an entrepreneur that's just sticking their feet in to begin with. We're talking about people that have been in business and they're looking to go to the next level. So I think we're continuing to look out there for additional resources in the county. And then overall, last but not least, obviously, outcomes, leverage, resources. What difference has this made to businesses? Well, the value of the resources provided to business, the extrinsic value, it's what have these businesses used that we've suggested. Right now it's about $133,000 that's been utilized. And some of the outcomes, one of the biggest infrastructure outcomes is a traffic light. A traffic light at 422 in Rapids Road. ODOT is a partner of ours. I met with an employer out in that area. There's an adjacent industrial park. And it was a pretty critical, dangerous intersection that just had a two-way stop when it should have really been a four-way stop. So ODOT we connected with, and also, the Growth Partnership was involved too. And there was a conversation, and ODOT said, we'll do a traffic study. We'll pay for it. And they did that, and they came back in November, and they said, we're going to pay for a light, and we're going to put a traffic light in there. So after 25 years, they got a traffic light in an intersection that's been particularly difficult. Now people come through there.
Can you get one out here?
You want me to? I can do an interview with you. Then we'll get ODOT involved. And, But I've had people go through that way, and sometimes the people that have zipped through and not had to stop before say, "I've got to wait for this darn light now." But overall, I mean, it's had a pretty big impact. So we've had impact in workforce. People come to us and we post job orders. We work with them on different strategies, training, and just connections to resources. So. People after meeting with them a year ago, I mean, I had somebody just this morning that said, "Hey, you know what, we met last spring. I'm ready to start an internship program. So what resources can you give me for engineers for colleges? Where can I go?" So, they continue to come back to us in what we need to do. And I think overall, the partners in the network, the people that we work with, they help us travel at the speed of business. So that's kind of just an overview for you.
The handouts that I gave you show some of our goals for the grant that we received from the Department of Labor. So I noted those for you.
Which document are you talking about?
The chart there. And I think that, we talk about numbers and we report numbers on a monthly basis, but I think that truly the information that Denise shared with you are the most important aspects of what the BRN and the BRN network, partner network, does each and every day. And then I also included a handout for you just for your information of a list of our local Geauga County partners, so you all can have an idea if you weren't aware already of the different partners and the agencies and organizations that we work with.
Let me ask you a couple questions. I'm still confused with the Business Resource Network. Is this a state-established program, or this is local businesses that got together and said we need to collaborate with each other to jointly succeed?
This is a grant project that includes 16 counties in the state. It was the grant application was awarded in 2012 to the 16 counties, and we actually are a 3-county area implementing it here in Geauga.
And the basis of the grants, what is the general, don't even mention federal grants to me. If you know anything about me at all, you know I do not like federal grants because the federal government steers the boat. They pick the winners and the losers, and I hate that. And so, which is a question I have for you actually, and that is, if it's a government grant program, my fear is, or the concern is, that the government picks the winners and the losers. And so if you look at the businesses that will succeed, they will succeed. They will succeed at all ends because they're going to succeed. If you look at the first transit that was ever installed in Cleveland, it wasn't put in by government. It was put in by a business guy that wanted to move people from Cleveland out into the suburbs because he built cottages out in the suburbs, and he wanted to get people out to the suburbs. And so if you look at the first internet, and I was around during the first internet, I didn't invent it, but I was around, and I heard this guy come in. I was working for EDS at the time, and this guy came in and says, "Hey, there's this thing. It's referred to as the internet. And, it's these colleges, and they put in these connections, and there's these things called servers." And I was traveling internationally at the time, and I said, "Can I use this to communicate with China and Asia? Because I'm having a lot of trouble. We're having to set up dedicated lines, da-da-da-da-da." Businesses did that. The government did not do that. And so if I were to ask you the question, why would we want government steering the boat? Why do we want these grants? Then help me to understand that.
I don't know that I would necessarily say that the government is steering the work that we're doing. I think that it is locally we're going out and meeting with any kind of business, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's service. We don't turn anybody away in that, right? The resources that we offer are open to anybody that we talk to. So if they are having infrastructure issues, we refer them to our partners who can help them with those structures. So in my mind, I don't see it as a government-driven process. I think it's I send the information out to the partners, they reply back to me, and we deliver that directly to the businesses. There's no other involvement as far as the process goes.
So you would say government enablement?
Would that be the term you would use?
In what context are you looking at
Well, government can enable. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
business consultant by trade.
Right,
And
right.
so I work with a lot of companies internationally to help them to succeed.
Right.
And I can guarantee you the Chinese government was not helping us when I was in China trying to figure out how to get General Motors implemented in China. And so, like I said, businesses who have a drive will succeed. They don't need government. They don't need anybody. Fact is, they'll mow down anybody in their way to succeed, and that's the way it should be. That's Darwin's rule. Like here is, if you interfere with Darwin, the healthiest businesses to succeed, then you get the weakest businesses succeeding, and that makes our country and our culture weaker. And so you want the strongest business, you want the strongest business concept to succeed, and Darwin's rules help that to occur. So that's a little bit of skeptical philosophy, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
And so, with that said, business enablement, there's a lot of things that government can do to enable business. So, for example, it used to be when I was consulting, the thing that businesses complained most about in the state of Ohio and why businesses fled Ohio was because of workers' compensation, and because of taxes, and because of regulations. Those were the top three things. The red tape established with getting a business established in the community, Cleveland's the perfect example. It is ungodly. It is, you rip your hair out, you can't get it done, so we'll go to Tennessee or wherever you're going to happen to go. And so, and taxes was another one. I had a business that I was doing business with in Lima, Ohio. They wanted to expand into Cleveland. It happened to have been a food distribution business. But because of the complicated sales tax in all the various communities, they couldn't figure out how to do it. It was way too complicated. And so taxes and regulation and the workers' comp were the top three things. Changing those dynamics enabled a business to be able to succeed and to do better and to actually get someplace.
Right.
And so that's what I'm referring to by enablement. Government realizing that sometimes it's its own worst enemy in terms of employment is making changes in that regard are the best things you can do for the business. So.
And we had a situation, maybe a good example of that, in one of our other counties that's participating in the program. They had a group of independent pharmacy owners who were being affected by some new legislation that had passed that was of benefit to the large pharmacies, Walmarts, Rite Aids, those kinds of things. So they actually got a small group of these pharmacy owners together and brought them to Columbus and got them an audience in front of the legislators so that they could share those concerns with them of how this new legislation was affecting business.
Good.
So.
Good. And by the way, just to set the stage here, I ask some pretty tough questions sometimes, and I apologize for that. But I do that intentionally because I want to hear the tough answers. I want to know that you guys are convicted in what you do, and that you can give me the answers. Because if somebody comes to me and says, "Who's the business network and why are they important?" If I'm not prepared with the answers, shame on me. And so I've got to ask you hard questions so that you can make sure that I'm educated and I can do the best job that I can to help you. So. Well, that's right. Shame on me.
And I think to add to that, I think the credibility of the whole entire area, like at least for Geauga, is my background is business. So I work extremely hard, and Margot knows this as well, that we kind of travel at the speed of business. So if a business calls me on the phone, I'm demystifying any red tape that's out there for them to get to the answer that we need to get. And I think they know that, so I think that's part of the process. And yeah, you're right. You come up against those things, and it's like, doggone it. Why is somebody making it difficult for people to get what they need to get? And an example was that Ohio Incumbent Training Grant. You had to look online to see everything that you had to do. I don't know why a business would even apply.
Well, if I was a business, I wouldn't. I would never take a grant from any government agency, period. Because when you take the grant, you've got an obligation. There's a payment now of some kind. There's a rule, there's a string, there's something you got to attach to that.
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
But
that's why I'm sitting here today. After getting rich like some other people. So, what are the top three things that the BRN does? The top three things.
were you going to say something?
Yeah, I can
Go
jump
ahead.
in. Well, the number one thing, and as a former business consultant, Commissioner, you're going to love this, is that the number one thing it does is it's a network. As you so eloquently pointed out, businesses and government have to intersect. I mean, it's the fewer points of intersection that we can reduce, from your viewpoint, would make things better, and I can agree with that. But we do have to intersect, and government is out there trying to do what it can to help business. So we've had for years all of these agencies out there offering programs and assistance to the business community, trying to make things better, or at least trying to get out of businesses' way as much as possible. But all of those programs are siloed. You know, they have to find the businesses, they have to explain their program and administer the program. The whole idea of the network was, from your viewpoint, how do we do things better? You ask these tough questions because we're always trying to figure out how can we do things better. That's where the network came out of. How can we help, and when we're intersecting with businesses, how can we offer them a better plan of assistance? And one of the things we said is well, what if everybody that had assets to bring to bear to help businesses in the community, or to at least lessen the red tape, what if we were all talking together? What if we had one person that was the face of government assistance and what assistance was available? What if we had that person going out, meeting with businesses, bringing back intel so that government knew what businesses' problems and needs were? And what if then that information was shared amongst everybody in the county and everybody in the region so that we could coordinate and offer up our efforts together? And that's the number one thing that the network does, is it combines and coordinates all of these assets that we do have out there, so that we're making sure that we are getting in good intel and we're offering up the best plans of assistance to business.
And what's businesses' involvement in the BRN?
Their involvement is, and that's what I was going to say, probably a number two thing would be that we are, approaching businesses as a single face. So rather than, a growth partnership and a Auburn Career Center and a BWC and all these folks, calling saying, can we come meet with you? Can we come meet with you? They really have one single point of contact. So rather than us coming in and trying to sell you our programs, we're listening to what your issues and your challenges and the opportunities you have, and we're reacting to that rather than trying to sell you a program.
Is this BRN cost business something?
No, it's free. It's a free service.
It's a tax provided. It's a taxpayer provided service. So we, the taxpayers, provide the BRN for businesses to help them.
Correct.
All right, cool. Any questions?
No.
Other than the light?
Yeah, the light. And I see these people at the NOCOG, and if I have a soapbox to drag out and get on, it's generally the problem with the education system today and the parents of the kids today who all want their child to get a 4-year degree in something that there's no job out there for. And we have facilities that are state-of-the-art, be it Auburn, be it Ashtabula Center or Willoughby Tech Center, or look around, they're all over the career technical schools that would take a child at the 11th grade level, take them through 11 and 12, and expose them to various parts of business, and then upon graduation, they can still go get a 4-year degree. But as I used the example, and I just saw her this morning over at a meeting we had earlier, Maggie Lynch from Auburn, and the HVAC program, when I was still in the school board business. And it was standing room only with a waiting list for this HVAC program for adults, paying thousands of dollars to take it. It almost became non-existent among high school kids because they only had 3 people enrolled out of 11 school districts. And here's a kid that could go in and take that course of study when he graduates from high school, he can take all his tests. He can start at a good-paying job, or he's been exposed to electronics, to all these other facets, and then go on to a 4-year degree, and who knows, maybe he's designing computers because of some on-hand activity. As Skip has his soapbox to stand on, I said, I have 2 children that graduated from a local good school, and they knew 2 things. They knew what a teacher did, because they've been sitting there with a teacher, plus their mother was one. And they knew what Dad did, and they didn't want to do what Dad did. Wouldn't have mattered what Dad did. They didn't want to do what Dad did because that's what Dad did. And so I'd love to know what the governor and all the education people that keep coming up with these, I'll use the expression harebrained, educational initiatives, although I'm sure the people wouldn't like the word harebrained, and the parents of these children who are still back when, my kid's going to go to college because he's got to get a good job, and the number of college graduates working at fast food restaurants is not that there's anything wrong with a fast food restaurant, but I'm not sure how long it'll take them to pay that college loan back.
Yeah, and I definitely see a change in that thought process, if you will. I think there's some programs that I know the Geauga Growth Partnership is working on, and some other organizations like that, to get in front of not only the kids but their parents early and get them into some of these manufacturing organizations, so they have some exposure to what the other side of the coin is.
Let me ask you one more question, and then I won't bother you anymore. Because I just had a recent experience. I had a friend who was in business, and I went and had dinner with him one time. He was doing resumes. He was helping other companies to sort through their resumes because he was really good at it. And so he had 3 piles. And I said, well, what's with the 3 piles of resumes? And he said, this group, completely unqualified. This group, and it was the shortest stack, qualified, we're going to interview them. The stack in the middle, which was the tallest stack, were people who were tested in the system in some way, shape, or form, but they couldn't show up for work. They weren't dependable. They didn't understand what it meant to get up and show to work on time. Right. He says, this is the biggest challenge that we have. Not the skill, because we can take care of the skill part. We can train people to be a CNC machine operator. We can, what one of the highest paid skills is today? And I do this tomorrow because I actually like it. Welding. If you can weld today, it is a huge deficit right now in being able to hire enough people who can weld. It's a fantastic skill. The problem, as I was talking, he said it's a huge challenge. He cannot find young people who understand that, number one, you got a boss. Number 2, when I say show up at 8 o'clock, I need you there at 8 o'clock. And by the way, you're working 8 hours a day. And he said, that's the biggest challenge. What are we doing, if anything, or what's your response to that? Are we doing anything in the schools, the high school level, to teach kids that responsibility? Now, most of the kids I know have those attributes. I'm not seeing that, but from his perspective, he sees a lot of that. What's your response to that?
We work with some programs in the county, and as Brenda alluded to, the Growth Partnership works a lot in those areas. So, like, for instance, I take a day, and I'm volunteering in a couple weeks for their sophomore day. So they take a series of high schools and bring them in and work on resumes, but there's a whole big section, in fact, they just sent their itinerary, but a whole big section on soft skills, on doing some exercises on team building in those areas. So, I think as we talk to the schools, what it's going to take and continue to take is that business has to be in those schools. I'm adamant that a business person cannot sit there and say that the education system is not providing what we need if they don't take the time to be in schools.
Very good point.
So we need to continue to elicit that participation and get those people out there in the organizations, in the classrooms, to continue to bring that together.
And they are starting to show interest in doing that and
Good.
being proactive in those leadership roles. And I always say that until the business is willing to put some skin in the game, that nothing's going to change. And I think, you were talking about this issue with the young people. I think it's, as our unemployment rates continue to fall, we're going to see that a lot more amongst the adult population too. Is how do we get some of these folks back?
Well, even kids that are coming out of college, and I've got a granddaughter home from college right now, so I'm talking to her a little bit. Their attitudes about employment are wholly different from my attitude when I was going to work. I expected I was going to work my butt off. I'd work 12, 16 hours a day, whatever it took. No, not so much. Do I get 4 weeks the first year? Because I'm not sure that I want to work for you. That's kind of, and I don't really understand where that comes from exactly. But, that is part of this equation. I mean, if you look at Ashtabula County, huge underemployment there. I mean, great opportunities for people in Geauga County because you've got some, hopefully some good people that you could skill up or that are skilled already and bring those on board. So. Well, I appreciate you coming.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Really good. Thank you. I mean, it was fun, too.
What?
Thank Margo.
And we've practiced soft skills building to it.
I like it. Okay.
You got to get all the players.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board move into executive session for the purpose of discussing the discipline of a public employee at County Health.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Rear?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
And we will have joining us Karen DeCola and Linda Breheny and Laura LaChapelle and Doug Bowen.
Will there be any action?
There may be.
There may be action upon return.
There may be.
There may be.
Maybe. Okay.